Chapter 21. The Soul Master Tournament begins. Please recommend and add to your favorites. For the grand finals of the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament, Spirit City had opened a special venue in its center. The massive arena was 100 meters across and built entirely of granite, reinforced with dozens of spirit tools so it could withstand any attack from a spirit master below the Spirit Emperor level without damage. Directly in front of the competition stage stood the Supreme Pontiff Palace, less than 1,000 meters away on a nearby hill. Spirit Hall had announced that the final 3 teams would fight in front of the Supreme Pontiff Palace and that the Supreme Pontiff would personally appear to crown the champion, an honor no spirit master would lightly forgo. Early that morning, every participating academy arrived under the escort of Spirit Hall personnel. Each academy had its own resting area arranged around the arena. Opposite the Supreme Pontiff Palace sat the VIP judging panel, where representatives from the 2 great empires and Spirit Hall watched the battles. 33 teams had made the grand finals. Each of the 2 great empires and Spirit Hall had chosen a seeded team, making 3 seeded teams in total. The grand finals would take place over 5 rounds. In the first round, the 3 seeded teams received byes, while the other 30 teams fought for 15 advancing spots. Losers were eliminated. In the second round, 2 teams would have byes, and the remaining 16 would fight to determine 8 teams to advance. In the third round, 1 team would have a bye, while the other 10 competed to fill 5 spots. The fourth round had no byes and would determine the top 3 teams. The fifth and final round would be contested by those 3 teams. First, a round robin with 7 members per side to determine the team with the strongest individual strength. Then the 2 losing teams would have a team battle. The winner of that battle would challenge the individual winner to decide the overall champion. Qian Xunan had not taken part in the earlier matches. Instead, he watched from the sidelines, keeping a close eye on Shrek Academy. Shrek had been seeded with byes in the first 2 rounds, and so jumped straight into the third round, landing in the top 10. Spirit Hall Academy had reselected its participants. 3 members of the Golden Generation won their early matches by default. By the time the third round began, Qian Xunan checked the schedule. Spirit Hall Academy versus Heaven Dao Royal Academy, Shrek Academy versus Star Luo Royal Academy. Qian Renshui had spoken of Shrek Academy's strength, so Qian Xunan settled in to watch. Star Luo's 7 members released their spirit powers first. In an instant, 4 spirit rings, 2 yellow and 2 purple, appeared on each of them. Among the team were as many as 6 spirit ancestors, a fact that by itself did not impress Qian Xunan. When Shrek Academy released their spirits, all 7 members displayed the same ring pattern, 2 yellow and 2 purple, and each was at the spirit ancestor level. Qian Xunan raised an eyebrow. Just spirit ancestors, and yet Xiaoshui pays them so much attention, he muttered to himself. He wanted to see whether Tang Hao's son might give him some reason to be hopeful. The match began. Shrek Academy fought hard, but it was Tang San's subtle, precise use of the blue-silver grass spirit that gradually tilted the field in their favor. Watching Tang San's techniques, Qian Xunan frowned. The blue-silver emperor, he said quietly. Its main body is an immortal spirit beast with terrifying healing and regeneration. Using the blue-silver emperor purely for control, what a waste of such a spirit. Still, Tang San's methods worked. In the end, Shrek Academy used a martial soul fusion skill to finish the match and defeated Star Luo Royal Academy. Qian Xunan regarded them calmly. Shrek Academy isn't as overwhelmingly powerful as some claim, but they're worth noting, he concluded. Next to step into the arena was Spirit Hall Academy. Their uniforms were pure white, embroidered with 6 symbols of Spirit Hall. The 3 who walked at the very front each wore a purple book-shaped badge on their left chest, a mark of honor. Shi Yu strode onto the field, glanced at Yan and his younger sister, Hu Liana, and said, "We must perform well this time and show the Hall of Judgment Master our true strength." They nodded and released their spirits. The 3 at the front each bore 5 spirit rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, and a single black ring, the optimal configuration. The pressure from those 3 instantly dimmed Yu Tianheng's dominance. The first movement, however, came from Hu Liana, not her brother Xie Yue. She stepped lightly forward, turned, and suddenly stood at the very front. A faint smile crossed her face as she released her spirit. She seemed to grow more beautiful, and a large, fluffy tail unfurled behind her. Her 5 spirit rings flashed in a peculiar rhythm, starting with the black 5th ring, then the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and finally the yellow 1st ring. Each time a ring fluctuated, the red light on her body intensified. At the same moment, Sheo moved. He wielded not one but 2 moon blades, blood-red crescents gripped in both hands. He charged toward his sister from behind. A red curtain of light sprang up and expanded. When Xie and Huliena's bodies met, the curtain wrapped around them both, then burst outward like an expanding sphere of light, quickly covering nearly half the stage and sweeping over all 7 of their opponents. The other 5 members of Spirit Hall Academy, Yan included, made no move. Yan even took a step back, standing with the rest of the team as the red light shimmered. The 2 who had been separate now appeared to fuse into a single figure. Long hair flowing, gender indistinguishable, its head glowing red as it began to dance in silence. 2 moon blades, magnified many times, slid through the air with rainbow-like brilliance. It was the martial soul fusion skill, demonic charm. The red light thickened and a tremendous energy fluctuation erupted. From within the luminous curtain came muffled groans, and one by one figures were flung out. In moments, all 7 members of Heaven Do Royal Academy were thrown from the field. Heaven Do Royal Academy defeated. Qian Xunan watched Spirit Hall Academy's display and could not help but shake his head. So arrogant, he said inwardly. They reveal their ultimate move so early? Foolish. If Spirit Hall Academy is to win the tournament, I'll need to prepare a contingency plan. Chapter 22, Bibi Dong's Intent. The 3rd round of the tournament had ended, and only 6 teams remained. To everyone's surprise, 2 of the 3 seeded teams had been knocked out that day. The only seeded team left was Spirit Hall Academy. Of the 6 survivors, Spirit Hall Academy was unquestionably the strongest, with Shrek Academy and Divine Wind Academy close behind. The matchups for the next round had been decided by draw, and the 3 powerhouses did not face one another. Each drew a relatively weak opponent, so the 4th round produced no real shocks. The final top 3 were exactly those expected. Now the competition had reached its climax. The 3 major teams were largely intact, and only 1 step away from the championship. Bright sunlight spilled over the land, turning the Supreme Pontiff Palace into a gleaming, golden spectacle, as if it were the dwelling of immortals. In front of the palace, 2 rows of guards in shining silver armor stood from the palace entrance all the way down the mountain. Their heavy knightly swords and polished armor made the entire mountain a more imposing sight. Eliminated teams had already been sent away. They weren't even permitted to watch the final day's battles. Only true young powerhouses were allowed onto the plaza in front of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Early that morning, the 3 teams who had made the top 3 had already gathered on the plaza, waiting silently. Their teachers were not allowed to stand there and remained at the periphery. 21 finalists stood in formation, calm and focused, awaiting the final hour. 12 cardinals, their rank only below the platinum bishops, emerged from a side door and walked slowly to the entrance of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. They divided, 6 to each side, and took their positions. A voice rang out, "Lord Arbiter arrives." The massive palace doors began to open. The 6 emblems engraved on the doors gradually shifted out of alignment, and every eye turned toward the entrance. Before the figure was fully visible, whispers ran through the crowd. "Who is this Lord Arbiter? I thought we'd be meeting the Supreme Pontiff. Why is it the Lord Arbiter? Who is he, anyway?" A young man stepped out onto the platform. It was Qian Xunan. He wore a magnificent white and gold robe that swayed around his tall, upright frame. The design was simple but elegant, following his body's lines and highlighting his perfect proportions. He stood straight and steady like a pillar. His long legs carried him with a calm, unhurried gait. Qian Xunan's face was handsome and severe. His brows had a sharpness to them. Dark, piercing eyes seemed to look through everything. A high bridge of the nose and a firm chin gave his profile a noble cast. His long hair fell glossy over his shoulders with a slight curl that lent him an air of refinement. Every motion he made spoke of composed confidence, and his bearing, both outward and inward, left the onlookers in awe. Inside the spirit hall, Bibi Dong stood on a high balcony, resplendent in a golden ceremonial gown and a purple gold crown, a scepter in hand. Her gown fit flawlessly, studded with more than 100 red, blue, and gold gems that glittered in the sunlight. Her pale skin only heightened her beauty. From her high perch, she watched Qian Xunan on the platform below, her gaze full of hidden meaning. Chrysanthemum Douluo stood at her side and asked immediately, "Your Holiness, why did you stay away? Why let Qian Xunan take center stage?" Bibi Dong's eyes remained fixed forward. "You'll see if you keep watching." Chrysanthemum Douluo nodded, and he and Ghost Douluo watched from the balcony as Qian Xunan walked onto the platform. Even so, none of the spirit masters in front of the hall knelt. A master of ceremonies stepped forward, addressed the assembled students, and announced loudly, "This is the hall master of our Hall of Judgment. This Soul Master tournament is presided over by the Lord Arbiter. To see the Lord Arbiter is to see the Supreme Pontiff. Salute!" But no one on the plaza bowed. Spirit masters from other schools, and even those from the spirit hall, stood rigid and silent. The atmosphere turned awkward. Bibi Dong watched with a faint smile. Chrysanthemum Douluo's eyes widened as he pieced it together. "Your Holiness," he said softly, "I understand. The Supreme Pontiff is trying to humble Qian Xunan, to show him that the Pontiff's position depends on the people's support, not on one person's entitlement." Bibi Dong said nothing aloud, but a cold little smile curved her lips. In her mind, she sneered. "Qian Xunan, you humiliated me before. Now I'll make you lose face in front of the whole world." Below, murmurs rose among the crowd. "Who is this Lord Arbiter? I never heard of a Hall of Judgment in the Spirit Hall. He looks so young, he can't be that strong, can he?" "Salute? He's not the Supreme Pontiff. Why should we salute him? Has the Spirit Hall become so arrogant? Do we have to bow to some official we've never heard of?" The Spirit Hall's own masters, following Bibi Dong's arrangement, did not bow. The Master of Ceremonies shouted again, "Seeing the Lord Arbiter is like seeing the Supreme Pontiff. Why are you not saluting?" Still no one moved. They watched as if expecting Qian Xunan to be embarrassed. Qian Shunan's expression did not change. He looked at the silent assembly and spoke evenly. "If you refuse to salute, are you disrespecting me, Qian Xunan, or are you disrespecting the Spirit Hall?" Chapter 23. All submit, seeking collection, seeking good reviews. At that moment, every eye in the arena turned to Qian Xunan. Then, as if the world itself had shifted, an almost unbearable pressure rolled out from him and filled the square. It pressed down like a 10,000-pound boulder, overwhelming and absolute, making everyone feel as flimsy as dust. The ground trembled, cracks seemed to spider across the earth, and a terrible silence followed the impact. Many people were flung backward by the sudden force, coughing blood, their faces drained of color. Ordinary spectators were crushed to their knees by the aura alone. Low-level spirit masters began to retch blood, collapsing one after another. Even higher-ranked spirit masters found themselves dropping to their knees, relieved only by the posture. Then, as if on cue, polite applause echoed faintly through the square. Only it wasn't applause of admiration, it was the sound of people kneeling. In an instant, those who had been arrogant and domineering a moment before lay prostrate like dogs. Even the stronger spirit masters, faces pale, knelt before Qian Xunan without resistance. A deep, animal fear had risen in their chests. He was beyond anything they had imagined. Some wondered helplessly if being 10 or 100 times stronger would even suffice to match him. It was simply terrifying. The noise of knees hitting the ground swelled into a thunderous sound. Departments crumpled under the pressure. Heaven Dew Royal Academy, Divine Wind Academy, Blazing Academy, Star Luo Royal Academy, one after another, all knelt. Only Shrek Academy, with its teachers and spirit masters, still tried to hold out. "Little San, can you still hold on?" Daimubai asked Tang San at his side. Tang San met his friend's eyes and shook his head once, firmly. "I will never submit." "We too," the Shrek Seven Devils shouted, exchanging glances. They wanted to confront the pressure like they had at Heaven Dew Royal Academy before. Qian Xunan glanced toward Shrek Academy without haste. In the next heartbeat, a boundless force slammed into them. Dean Flender, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, Tang San, Daimubai, no one at Shrek could withstand Qian Xunan. They all crumpled to their knees. A few Spirit Douluo from Spirit Hall held out longer, but what was Qian Xunan? He was a Limit Douluo. He eyed those straining to stand and snorted coldly, "Will you still not submit?" Then even more of his terrifying might unfurled. In that instant, everyone understood what it meant to be a Limit Douluo. It was like an ant facing an elephant, hopeless. Under Qian Xunan's dominance, nearly no one dared to move. Even the slightest motion might be their last. They felt certain they would disperse to dust. Invisible waves radiated outward. Those already overwhelmed convulsed, their legs giving way as they collapsed. Countless spirit masters' consciousnesses dimmed. Many slipped into comas. Some bled from their 7 orifices under the strain. Gasps rippled through the spectators outside the square. Shock, fear, disbelief. By now, everyone in the arena had prostrated themselves, except the titled Douluo in the VIP seats. Even the leading instructors had been forced down. Qian Xunan surveyed the kneeling multitude with an icy gaze and said, voice like a blade, "I don't care if you disrespect me, Qian Xunan, or our Spirit Hall. But remember this, in Spirit Hall, before me, Qian Xunan, if you are a dragon, coil for me. If you are a tiger, lie down for me. Be meek, and you may live longer." No one dared reply. They all understood that another word could well be fatal. Finally, a Spirit Douluo at Qian Xunan's side called out, "Will you not pay respects to the Arbiter?" "Greetings, Lord Arbiter." The cry rose from every corner, trembling but unanimous. At the sound, the crushing pressure slowly eased. Qian Xunan looked over the crowd and said calmly, "All right, you may rise. The competition continues. I won't pursue this further yet. If anyone disrespects me again, next time it won't be mere pressure." His tone was composed, but his authority left no room for argument. Humility and fear spread through the ranks like a contagion. "Thank you, Lord Arbiter, for your leniency. We will remember this," they shouted in unison, voices filled with forced reverence. Qian Xunan nodded slightly. "Then continue the matches." "Yes," the instructors responded. On a high balcony, Bibi watched the scene darken her features. A cold, killing intent flickered in her eyes. She had not expected Qian Xunan to be this formidable. Thousands kneeling under his pressure, how much spirit power did that require? Even she might have found it challenging. "He impresses with brute force, making them submit through terror," Chrysanthemum Douluo murmured beside her. Bibi Dong's gaze hardened as she looked toward Qian Xunan. She coldly snorted, "Fear-forced submission won't last." Chrysanthemum Douluo agreed. "Your Eminence is right. The Supreme Pontiff's contributions to Spirit Hall are known to all. Your presence commands Spirit Hall and the world. How could this unpopular Qian Xunan ever truly contend with you?" Bibi Dong's lips curved half a smile, then tightened. "Qian Xunan," she said softly, "one day I will make you pay dearly." Chapter 24. Forfeit. Qian Xunan looked down with a mild expression and announced, "Next, I declare the ultimate victor will receive Spirit Hall's greatest reward." He raised his hand. 3 points of light swelled and hung in the air, each one resolving into a small bone-shaped relic, a right arm bone, a skull, and a left leg bone. They glowed with fiery red, pale blue, and deep green light, respectively. Spirit bones. Even from below Supreme Pontiff Mountain, the 3 lights were unmistakable, and the whole of Spirit City buzzed with excitement. Who would have expected the final prize to be 3 spirit bones? From their radiance, it was clear these were of extraordinary quality. Even Spirit Hall's own members showed hard, covetous expressions. If this had not been the Supreme Pontiff Palace, and if Qian Xunan's presence did not deter them, someone might already have lunged forward to seize them. Spirit bones were the rarest and most precious treasures to a spirit master. Their value depended on the age and rank of the spirit beast they came from. External spirit bones were the rarest of all and nearly as valuable as a 100,000-year spirit ring. There are 6 ordinary spirit bones, head, torso, and 4 limbs, and among them the torso is most prized, then the head, then right hand, left leg, and right leg. These 3 bones, by their light, had to come from 10,000-year spirit beasts, placing them among the very best. A Spirit Douluo stepped forward from behind Qian Xunan and spoke in a deep voice. The 3 spirit bones are the mind-condensing wisdom skull, the burst incineration flame right arm bone, and the swift forward wind-chasing left leg bone. The mind-condensing wisdom skull came from a spirit beast over 50,000 years old. He continued. It was personally slain and retrieved by the previous Supreme Pontiff. It ranks at the top among spirit bones, second only to external spirit bones and the ultimate bones of a 100,000-year beast. At the mere mention of spirit bones, the eyes of every spirit master present shone. The 21 competitors suddenly stirred with fierce, immediate resolve. The Spirit Douluo laid out the rules. This morning, each of the 3 teams will send out 7 individuals for one-on-one elimination rounds. The last team standing will gain the advantage. Tomorrow, they will enter the championship fights directly. The 2 losing teams will compete this afternoon for the other spot in the final. You may send out your first contestant. It was a personal elimination round like the qualifiers, only this time with 3 academies in play. Though not the final, it mattered just as much. A win meant conserving strength and earning a better position for tomorrow. A row of gilded chairs stood before the Supreme Pontiff Palace. Qian Xunan took his seat and watched with composed interest. Divine Wind Academy sent Huo Wushuang, the former captain of Blazing Academy. Spirit Hall Academy put forward a spirit master in his 40s. Shrek Academy's first choice surprised many. Not one of the Shrek 7 devils, and not Tai Long or any of the reserves, but Jing Ling, a nimble melee battle spirit master still under level 40. 2 members of the 7 devils were supports and thus unsuited to solo fights. Grandmaster Yu Xiaogong clearly picked Jing Ling deliberately. The 3 contestants drew lots to see which 2 would fight first. Luck favored Shrek. Jing Ling drew a bye and would wait for the winner, conserving his strength and observing his future opponents. It was an excellent draw. But when the Spirit Hall contestant and Huo Wushuang walked to the center, the Spirit Hall fighter suddenly turned and bowed toward Qian Xunan. "I forfeit this match," he said. Qian Xunan only nodded. Before the match could proceed, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogong, who had been seated among the Shrek 7 devils, stood up. "Please wait," he called. Qian Xunan regarded him coolly. Yu Xiaogong smiled thinly. Shrek Academy forfeits the first half of the grand finals and will voluntarily enter the losers bracket finals this afternoon. The announcement stunned the crowd. The sudden surrender by the Spirit Hall contestant had been surprising but explainable. Yu Xiaogong's declaration that Shrek Academy was surrendering the individual round outright was another matter. Even the other Shrek 7 devils, save Tang San, looked bewildered. None had been informed in advance. Qian Xunan watched Yu Xiaogong with an unperturbed face. He understood the plan immediately. Spirit Hall was the strongest. In solo matches, Shrek had little chance. Better to forfeit now, preserve their strength, and take the alternative route through the loser's bracket. He inwardly thought, how petty and cunning Yu Xiaogong is. No wonder he managed to fool that foolish woman, Bibi. Qian Xunan lifted his eyes and said calmly, "Very well." At that moment, the leader of Divine Wind Academy rose, bowed to Qian Xunan, and smiled. "Lord Arbiter, Spirit Hall is mighty. We admit defeat. We cannot match them. Rather than depleting ourselves, we'll fight Shrek Academy this afternoon for the other final spot. We also forfeit the individual competition." Qian Xunan nodded. The referee announced, since both Divine Wind Academy and Shrek Academy forfeit, Spirit Hall Academy advances to the finals. Shrek Academy and Divine Wind Academy will face each other this afternoon. The Spirit Hall's Golden Generation trio, Yan, Huliana, and Xie, relaxed into confident grins. Yan sneered aloud, "They're just cowards. They don't even have the guts to face us. I wonder what Qian Xunan is fretting about." Huliana added contemptuously, "Those 2 teams don't have a single Spirit King. What can they possibly bring to a fight?" Shiyu's gaze was colder. "Whatever happens, we'll win the finals in style and utterly humiliate Qian Xunan." They spoke without respect, even using Qian Xunan's name openly, their voices filled with disdain. Chapter 25, A Backup Plan. The afternoon matches began with Shrek Academy facing Divine Wind Academy. Qian Xunan, as the chief overseer of the Soul Master tournament, watched closely from the stands. Both schools had already taken their positions in the arena. The Shrek members formed a ring. At the center were Ning Rongrong and Oscar. The other 5, Tang San, Dai Mu Bai, Xiao Wu, Ma Hongjun, and Juju King, moved in tight, synchronized steps. The fluctuations of their spirit power traced a deliberate, circulating pattern. Divine Wind Academy immediately adjusted their formation, switching to a 5-protect-2 arrangement. two support spirit masters backing Huowu, while three attackers formed a screen. In the air, Feng Xiaoqian circled, and Huowu gathered her spirit power, her rings fusing into a concentrated force. "Change!" Tang San shouted. The circular formation of the seven devils snapped into a vertical line. Tang San dashed to the front, followed by Dai Mubai, Ma Hongjun, Xiao Wu, and Juju King, with Ning Rongrong and Oscar anchoring the rear. The spirit energy they had been compressing twisted and knotted together, channeling toward a single point. At that moment, Oscar slipped up behind Ning Rongrong and hugged her. The soft red glow that enveloped him shifted to a warm pink and poured into Ning Rongrong. The seven-treasure glazed tile pagoda rose before her. Ning Rongrong clapped her hands forward. Simultaneously, her four spirit rings flared. From the lower four layers of the pagoda, four solid nine-colored halos erupted and shot straight into Juju King's body. Under the surge of auxiliary spirit power, Juju King raised her arms and pressed them against Xiao Wu's back. The nine-colored light intensified and streamed into Xiao Wu through Juju King's hands, encasing Juju King herself in a shimmering aura. The same light flowed from Xiao Wu to Ma Hongjun, then to Dai Mubai. When it reached Dai Mubai, he slammed his palms onto Tang San's back. Tang San's body shook violently. No nine-colored halo flashed on him. Instead, a crushing, overwhelming pressure burst forth. An accumulation of six others' strength focused through him. Qian Xunan's eyes narrowed. "A 7-in-1 fusion," he murmured. The effect was devastating. Though it wasn't a world-shattering martial soul fusion, combining seven spirit masters' power into one offensive was a terrifying feat. Tang San, carrying that concentrated force and wielding the clear sky hammer spirit, bore down on Divine Wind Academy. The defense held for a moment but couldn't withstand the combined assault. Under the 7-in-1 fusion, Shrek Academy won the match. Qian Xunan watched, then compared what he'd seen to Spirit Hall Academy's performance. He muttered to himself, "Spirit Hall is stronger than Shrek overall, but they're arrogant and likely to trip over that arrogance." He thought further. As the preeminent Spirit Master organization on the Douluo Continent, Spirit Hall could not afford humiliation. If their representatives were to lose to other schools, the Hall's prestige would suffer. A backup plan is necessary, he decided. After the match, Qian Xunan summoned Qian Renshui to his Hall of Judgment. She arrived swiftly and bowed. "Uncle, did you need me for something?" Qian Xunan looked at her calmly. "Renshui, I need you to represent Spirit Hall in tomorrow's final." Qian Renshui's face registered shock. "But uncle, I'm undercover in the Heaven Dew Empire right now. How can I possibly appear in the finals?" "You saw Spirit Hall Academy today," Qian Xunan said evenly. "The so-called Golden Generation are arrogant show-offs. They can't be trusted with the Hall's honor. Shrek Academy just used a 7-in-1 fusion. That alone proves they aren't weak. I need a contingency to make sure Spirit Hall wins." Before she could protest further, he continued, "I've already arranged everything." At his words, Qian Xunan called, "Bring him in." A young man stepped into the hall. He looked exactly like Shui Qinghe, the identity Qian Renshui had been using for her undercover work. Qian Renshui stared, stunned, then looked at Qian Xunan in disbelief. How is this possible?" Qian Xunan explained, "My spirit ability is called 1,000 Changes. It can alter the voice, appearance, and form of anyone or anything. I found someone to stand in as Shui Qinghe for a day. That frees you to act openly as Qian Renshui and represent the hall." He added in a measured tone, "Once I apply the change, no one can undo it unless I release it myself. No one will discover the swap. You will go in public as Qian Renshui, but when necessary, you'll be placed as a support spirit master on the field." Qian Xunan's plan was clear. If Spirit Hall Academy managed to win on their own, Qian Renshui needn't lift a finger. But if the current team failed against Shrek Academy, she could reveal herself and intervene to secure the victory. Qian Renshui considered the hall's honor for a long moment, then bowed her head. "Very well. For the hall." Qian Xunan allowed a small smile. "You won't be leading the attack. You'll appear as a support within the team. If they can win unaided, great. If not, you'll step in when the moment demands it." She nodded. "Understood." The night passed quietly. At dawn the next day, the sun poured down on the arena. The final match of the Soul Master Tournament was about to begin. Chapter 26, Soul Master Tournament Finals. Qian Xunan arrived at the arena and took a seat in front of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. To his surprise, Supreme Pontiff Bibi had also come to watch the final match. She was accompanied by Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo, and she sat down beside him. "Oh, the arbiter is diligent to arrive so early," Bibi said with a smile as she looked at Qian Xunan. Qian Xunan returned her smile with a calm look. For the honor of Spirit Hall, diligence is required. Bibi smile deepened. And why does the Supreme Pontiff have the leisure to watch this match today? To see Spirit Hall triumph, or to see an old lover? Qian Xunan's expression hardened into a sneer. There were few people nearby, so only those closest could hear. Bibi face instantly flushed with anger. "Qian Xunan, what do you mean by that?" His gaze was steady. "Did I say something wrong? If you dare, why fear people talking?" Bibi glared, but in public she could do nothing. "My heart belongs only to Spirit Hall," she said. Qian Xunan's tone remained cold. "This is the Soul Master Tournament. I won't argue with you now, but I will investigate everything you've done in the past. If I find you have wronged my elder brother or Spirit Hall, I won't let you off." Having said that, he turned his attention back toward the arena. At that moment, the teams from Shrek Academy and Spirit Hall Academy stepped onto the stage. The Spirit Hall Academy team stood silent and severe, a cold, killing intent like a sharpened blade aimed straight at the Shrek 7 Devils. The finals of the All-Continent Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament are about to begin. Both teams prepare. "The match will start in 15 minutes, the referee announced. With the formal announcement, the match officially began. Grandmaster raised his right hand, and each member of the Shrek 7 Devils mirrored him. 8 hands stacked together, and they shouted in unison, "Victory!" The Spirit Hall team heard the shout. Their captain, Shiyue, curled his lips in contempt. "Victory? Today will show them what true strength is. The gap in spirit power is an insurmountable chasm. Even our weakest spirit master rivals their captain. I want to see how they plan to win." A cold, murderous spark passed across his teammates' faces. "Supreme Pontiff is watching, and the elders are watching. We must not just win, we must completely crush them and give them no chance." He glanced toward Tang. "I'll handle Tang. You others know your tasks." "Champions!" The Spirit Hall team roared, louder and fiercer. "Prepare for the match. Both sides may release their spirits." The referee confirmed both sides were set. Silence fell as 14 individuals sized each other up. Auras tightened until the tension was almost tangible. The Spirit Hall 7 moved almost simultaneously. A surge of spirit power erupted from them at once. The 3 at the very front, including Shiyue, had the optimal spirit ring configuration: 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black ring. The 4 behind them also had a strong setup, with 2 yellow and 2 purple rings each. Determination burned in all their eyes. At the back, a female student stepped back and produced a brilliant golden staff, a clear sign of an auxiliary tool spirit. No one present, except Qian Xunan, recognized her as Qian Renxue. Her spirit rings and the staff were a deliberate disguise. Across from them, the Shrek 7 Devils released their spirits in turn. They formed a 2-3-2 formation, Tang and Dai Mubai in front, Juju King, Ma Hongjin, and Xiao Wu in the middle, and Ning Rongrong and Oscar in the rear. Unlike their previous match, they did not use the 7-in-1 martial soul fusion. They released their spirits individually. All 7 had 4 spirit rings, but Tang stood out. He bore a 10,000-year spirit ring. Supreme Pontiff Bibi frowned slightly and glanced toward Grandmaster, thinking, Xiaogang really changed his formation again. Qian Xunan felt confident. Spirit Hall had a spirit emperor among its ranks as a safeguard. No matter how Shrek Academy struggled, he expected them to fail. He had already ordered Qian Renxue not to act until the last moment. He wanted to see if this so-called golden generation truly matched its reputation. "The match begins," the referee announced, stepping aside to clear the arena. The first movement came not from Captain Shiyue, but from his sister Hulina. With a light, graceful step, she swept forward to the front. As she released her spirit, she seemed to blossom in beauty. A large, fluffy tail unfurled from her back. Tang, at the front of his team, caught a pink light that Oscar flipped to him with a backhand and stepped forward to meet the 7 opponents. From his right hand, 6 strands of blue-silver grass shot out and wrapped around the waists of his 6 teammates. The blue-silver grass binding was in place. Hu Liana's gaze stayed cold on Tang San as her 5 spirit rings flickered in sequence. The 5th black ring pulsed, then the 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and finally the yellow 1st ring. Each time a ring shifted, a red glow on her body intensified. Behind her, Xieyue moved at the same instant. He wielded not 1 but 2 moon blades, blood-red, crescent-shaped blades gripped at the centers with both hands. He spread his arms and slammed into his sister from behind. A red light curtain rippled into being and enveloped them both. The moment they collided, the curtain detonated outward in an explosive sphere, expanding across nearly half the arena. Spirit Hall Academy had activated their martial soul fusion skill. Chapter 27, The Golden Generation. Spirit Hall Academy immediately activated their martial soul fusion skill, Demonic Charm. A red mist flickered and within it, 2 figures merged into one, a long-haired being whose gender could not be told. The most terrifying effect of Demonic Charm was control. Inside its range, everyone's senses were halved, spirit power suppressed by 50%, and all actions delayed by half. Tang San's arms shivered. The blue-silver grass at his sleeves rippled outward, and 6 figures sprang from the red mist. To the spectators, it looked like 6 silhouettes had suddenly soared free of the enchantment. A tiger's roar tore from Daimubai as, midair, his first spirit ability, White Tiger Barrier, and his third, White Tiger Vajra transformation, ignited together. Giant flaming wings spread from Ma Hongjun's back. Xiao Wu landed nimbly on the ground. The Shrek 6 monsters instantly shifted into combat formation. Unless you can fly, it's impossible to escape my martial soul fusion skill, Shi Yue sneered as he lunged forward. From beside his ear, Tang San replied coolly, "Then we'll fly for you to see." In an instant, a faint glow blossomed behind each of them. The light took wing shapes, and all 6 accelerated at once, rushing beyond the red mist and lifting into the air. Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong's eyes widened as she watched them break free. Dai Mubai and Juju King shot straight at the opposing Spirit King, Yan. Ma Hongjun and Xiao Wu squared off against 3 other battle spirit masters. Qian Xunan's gaze remained steady as he murmured, "A food system spirit master like this is indeed rare." Tang San unleashed his 8 spider lances. Each leg extended over 4 meters long, as thick as an arm, purplish-black and gleaming. Curved barbs caught cold light. Each leg was divided into 2 sections, the tip a spear-like, indestructible point. He instantly drove them toward Xieyue. Daimubai's claws lengthened with a metallic roar as he tore toward Yan. Among the Spirit Hall Academy team, 3 of the 4 other battle spirit masters moved forward to engage Ma Hongjun and Xiao Wu. Only the support system spirit master remained motionless. After their initial clash, Dai Mubai and Juju King switched to hit-and-run tactics. Juju King attacked from the flank while Dai Mubai drew Yan's attention head-on. Tang San's expression hardened. He placed his hands together at his chest, and with each flicker in his eyes, the air itself seemed to stiffen. The 8 spider lances became 8 long spears, stabbing from impossible angles, his whole body guided by their thrusts. Xieyue's moonblades were stronger than Tang San had expected. Even the resilient spider legs left scratches wherever they struck, and some barbs were sheared off by the blades. After parrying 2 rapid strikes, Xieyue suddenly spun. One of his moonblades shot forth like lightning, still spinning as it flew. A sneer twisted his lips. "You can see me inside Demonic Charm," he taunted. "But once I take the advantage, you won't get another chance." The moonblade whistled through the air, the red demonic patterns on it radiating pressure. Tang San's instincts flared. He withdrew his arms, twisted violently in midair, and slung out his left hand. The 500 Jin Clear Sky Hammer met the moonblade head-on. A thunderous impact sent both weapons flying. "So what if you can use the Clear Sky Hammer to block my moonblades?" Xieyue jeered. "You only have 1 hammer. I have 2 blades. Let's see how you stop attacks from both front and back." He hurled the moonblades again. As his pupils narrowed, Tang San reacted. The Clear Sky Hammer collided with 1 moonblade and was knocked away, and miraculously, that deflected hammer intercepted the other moonblade mid-flight, smashing into it. Xieyue's face flickered with disbelief. He drew a breath and, composing himself, declared, You are the first to face my self-created skill. Consider yourself honored to be its target. Tang San's tone was cold. When Feng Xiaoqian used his Storm Devil Wolf 36 consecutive slashes on me, he must have thought the same. You saw how that ended. Xie Yue sneered, the demonic light in his eyes intensifying. A rookie like Feng Xiaoqian can't be compared to me. My self-created skill is flawless. Experience it, full moon. He moved like a whirlwind. In a blink, he and his 2 moon blades vanished. Where he had been there remained only a giant white disk, the full moon spirit ability unleashed to crush Tang San. Tang San's eyes flared. He began to spin. The 8 spider lances on his back straightened and swept into a cyclone, a whirling array of spears. Xie Yue's full moon struck the spider lance storm and began to shred it. But Tang San wasn't finished. He had no 9th spider leg, but he had something else. At the climax of his spinning, the clear sky hammer shot out from Tang San's cyclone and slammed into the full moon with bone-shattering force. Friction howled and sparks flew from the point of impact. The hammer arced into the air. Tang San, unable to sustain the frantic rotation, tumbled out of the whirlwind and crashed heavily to the ground. The full moon spin stalled under that final heavy blow. In that instant, the demonic charm martial soul fusion skill dissolved. Xie Yue and Hu Liena both lost their spirit power. Qian Xunan couldn't hide a frown as he watched. He looked to Bibi and said sharply, "Bibi, is this the golden generation you selected? 3 spirit kings struggling against a team with no spirit kings. Pathetic. And Hu Liena, as Spirit Hall's holy maiden, the #1 genius. What is she good for besides activating demonic charm with Xie Yu?" Bibi Dong's face went green, but she forced herself to respond as she watched the arena. It's too early to draw conclusions. They will still win. Chapter 28. Who says our Spirit Hall lost? On the arena stage, Xie Yue still wore that smug, confident smile. He looked at Tang San with faint regret. "You're strong," he admitted. "I heard you're not yet 15. It's hard to imagine what kind of genius you are. In talent, I don't match you." He raised the moon blade in his hand as if to punctuate his words. "Don't think you've won yet," Tang San said, his right hand lifting slowly. "Do you have any way to turn this around?" Perhaps because the tide of the match seemed decided, Xie Yue spoke more. Tang San smiled calmly. "You've used your self-created spirit ability. I haven't. I've seen your true strength. Do you know mine?" "I'd like to see how you'll turn the tide," Xie Yue sneered, arrogance clear in his voice. Tang San moved, only his right hand. His arm swung, his forearm trembling to an odd rhythm. When his 5 fingers spread, they seemed to blur into nothing, an illusionary motion. The fragments of the 8 spider lances he held scattered and flew out. Tang San had held 16 fragments in all, mostly barbed sections and shards from the original 8 spider lances. Xie Yu laughed. "Is this your so-called self-created spirit ability?" Tang San smiled too. The 16 fragments did not fly straight. They arced and dispersed. Xie Yue's expression shifted as 2 fragments struck him, embedding themselves. Hu Liena's face registered even greater surprise. 4 fragments plunged into her. In an instant, both siblings felt the sensation in their shoulders vanish. Panic flickered across their faces. It was already too late to sever a limb. The numbness had spread up into their chests. Without hesitation, the brother and sister sat cross-legged on the ground, forcing their dwindling spirit power to resist the poison spread. That was all they could do. Thud, thud, thud. 4 heavy sounds fell almost together. Aside from one support-type spirit master standing at the rear, 4 other members of the Spirit Hall Academy team, together with Xie Yue, Hu Liena, and Yan, sank down onto the arena. Of Tang San's 16 fragments from his Batwing reincarnation technique, 6 had struck the shy siblings, and the other 10 flew at the other 5 opponents. The field had flipped. The side that had dominated just moments ago suddenly had 6 members fallen, leaving only a lone support spirit master standing. The balance of victory tipped again, and this time, tipped completely. Even Supreme Pontiff Bibi, whose resolve had been as steady as granite, could not hide the change in her expression when she saw the sudden reversal. Tang San had not broken the rules. The fragments were pieces of his own 8 spider lances, parts of his body, rather than a separate weapon. No one could have predicted such a decisive result from a simple, gentle toss. On the sidelines, Qian Xunan watched and sneered. Trash is trash. Lucky I prepared a backup plan, he said. A voice then spoke directly into the Supreme Pontiff's ear. Your Eminence, I must remind you of something. Chrysanthemum Douluo Yuguan was about to demand who dared address the Supreme Pontiff so bluntly, until he realized the speaker was Poison Douluo Dugubo, a titled Douluo who had stayed with the Shrek team. Supreme Pontiff Bibi leveled a cold look at Dugubo. What does Poison Douluo want to remind this pontiff of? Dugubo smiled, though the smile was thin. A titled Douluo's rank carried weight. Supreme Pontiff, the poisons affixed to Tang San's 8 spider lances, even I cannot detoxify them. Only he can. Moreover, those lances carry 3 potent poisons, hot, cold, and the man-faced demon spider toxin. They're a mixed venom and act extremely fast. Spirit power can slow them, but its effect is limited. If you delay, I fear only one of your golden generation will survive. There was a barbed note in Dugubo's words, but he spoke without fear. Dugubo was a lone wolf. Spirit Hall's power did not intimidate him. Backed by the Heavendew Empire imperial family, he spoke with the confidence that title gave him. Qian Xunan glanced at Dugubo and asked, Is Poison Douluo threatening Spirit Hall? Dugubo met his gaze. Threatening? No, just reminding. Qian Xunan smiled quietly. So you think Spirit Hall Academy will surely lose? With only a support Spirit Master left standing, can they defy fate? Dugubo's tone was mocking. If you don't concede, Supreme Pontiff, I doubt your 3 golden generation pupils can be saved. Bibi face flickered. Qian Xunan didn't care for the golden generation, but those 3 had been personally nurtured by her. She could not watch them die. For a moment, the victory that had seemed assured felt stolen, and the Supreme Pontiff struggled to accept it. She weighed her choices and then rose decisively. Spirit Hall Academy team, Icon. Before she could finish, the lone support Spirit Master on the field suddenly shouted, I'm not down yet. Who says our Spirit Hall has lost? Everyone's eyes turned to her, from the gravely injured Tang San to the remaining Shrek members and every spectator. Ma Hongjun of Shrek Academy looked at the lone support Spirit Master with disdain and sneered, You're just a support Spirit Master. Are you really going to fight? The next instant, no one was laughing. The support Spirit Master stepped forward. With every step, her presence shifted. Her black hair shimmered and brightened to gold. Her plain clothes changed into gleaming golden armor. The staff in her hand transformed into a long golden sword. Even her features, previously unremarkable, became breathtakingly beautiful. Her eyes were like deep lakes, full of wisdom and mystery. Her face was finely sculpted, her contours elegant, her skin as fair as jade, her lips a rosy petal. Long hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall, threaded with a faint golden glow. In the sunlight, she became a dazzling war goddess. Except for Qian Xunan, everyone else widened their eyes in disbelief. Chapter 29, Instantly Killing Shrek. When that beautiful goddess of war appeared, everyone's eyes widened in shock. That's... One by one, the elders stared at the woman on the stage, whispering, It's the daughter of the former Supreme Pontiff, Qian Renshui. Qian Renshui? How can that be? Isn't she out adventuring, not in Spirit Hall? An elder exclaimed. Could she have returned? Bibi face went pale. She rose to her feet and stared fixedly at the woman on the stage. How dare she act on behalf of Spirit Hall instead of staying her mole, Bibi thought furiously. Ningfengji, Sword Douluo, and Poison Douluo Dugubo all showed stunned expressions. How is this possible? Spirit Hall actually has a hidden trump card. Dugubo muttered, dumbfounded. Ningfengji shook his head slightly. They say the former Supreme Pontiff Qian Xunji and the current Supreme Pontiff have a daughter. She's been a prodigy since childhood, Spirit Hall's brightest of the younger generation. But she's never been seen before. I didn't expect to see her today in this tournament. Sword Douluo kept a calm expression, then added, This girl is very strong. I'm afraid Rongrong and the others are in trouble. Even Spirit Hall's people were stunned, craning their necks toward the arena. Is she really the Supreme Pontiff's daughter? I heard she's been adventuring for years. Why return now? She looks even stronger than Holy Maiden Huliana. Most didn't know Qian Renshui's true situation. Only a few, like Qian Daliu and Bibi Dong, knew about her undercover mission. On the Heavendew Empire side, Qian Xunan's arranged Shui Qinghe sat among the crowd, so no one connected the woman before them to that identity. Qian Xunan, watching the stage with a slight smile, nodded in satisfaction. Fortunately, he still had a trump card. Otherwise, the championship of this Soul Master tournament might have slipped away. That so-called golden generation had disappointed him, especially Holy Maiden Lina. He'd heard how talented she was, but on the battlefield she had merely activated a martial soul fusion skill with Xie Yue and had her spirit power drained. No outstanding performance at all. If they didn't do well, he intended to punish them and use this chance to strip Lina of her title. On stage, Qian Renxue looked calmly at the Shrek 7 Devils and said, "I'm still on this stage. Who's going to say Spirit Hall has lost now?" All of Shrek Academy except Tang San still had the strength to fight. They rose as one and faced Qian Renxue. Daimubai said, "She's only one person. We're not afraid. Let's go together. If we persist and defeat her, we win." His teammates echoed. Qian Renxue's lips curved in a faint smile. "Oh, then I'll be waiting to see." Ning Rongrong activated her spirit ability. 7 treasures, speed. 7 treasures, power. Streaks of light flashed across the arena, instantly boosting the remaining 4 teammates. Oscar poured the last of his spirit power into producing a final recovery sausage and handed it to Xiaowu, Ma Hongjun, Juju King, and Dai Mubai. Juju King and Dai Mubai exchanged a glance. Dai Mubai asked, "Ju King, can we unleash Hell White Tiger one more time?" She nodded. Yes. They immediately activated their martial soul fusion skill, Hell White Tiger. A colossal white tiger phantom appeared before Qian Renxue. Ma Hongjun spread his wings like a fiery phoenix, ready to strike. Xiaowu took a flanking position, poised to attack. Qian Renshui's smile stayed calm and composed. "Since I'm going to move, I'll be a bit more serious," she said. "Spirit, possess." Golden light shimmered around her as 6 angelic wings unfolded behind her, making her seem even more sacred and awe-inspiring. 6 spirit rings appeared on her aura. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, black. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Spirit Emperor," someone yelled. The members of the Shrek 7 Devils stared at one another in disbelief. "How can she be a Spirit Emperor-level expert?" Ma Hongjun cried. Tang San, standing behind them, steadied himself. "There's no need to panic. We've fought Spirit Emperors before. If we go together, we can win." He met his friend's eyes and shouted, "Shrek, victory!" "Victory!" they answered in unison and launched themselves at Qian Renxue. Xiaowu charged to the front. Ma Hongjun unleashed Phoenix Firewire, sending terrifying flame power toward her. The Hell White Tiger erupted with raw power and leapt forward. But Qian Renshui's eyes were indifferent, not even focusing on them. As they closed in, her 5th and 6th spirit rings flared to life. The 6th spirit ability, Angel's Roar, detonated. A massive mental force surged outward. Angel's Roar converts spirit power into a mental shock, raining a wide-range psychic assault on foes. Those hit feel violent mental tremors. If an opponent's mental force is less than half the user's, their soul can shatter and their head will explode. The Shrek 7 Devils were struck instantly. All of them froze, dazed and motionless. Qian Renxue extended her hand and a golden longsword condensed in her grip, her 5th spirit ability, Holy Sword. With a graceful sweep, she released an overwhelmingly powerful torrent of spirit energy at the 7. Boom! A single explosion of sword chi blasted the 7 of them apart, sending them flying out of the arena and landing outside the ring. Only Qian Renxue remained on the stage. She had been absolute, overwhelming. In one instant, she had neutralized all 7 members of Shrek Academy. The entire Spirit Hall Plaza fell utterly silent. Chapter 30. Intimidate Du Gubo. The Spirit Hall Plaza fell completely silent. Everyone stared at the scene before them, stunned. After a long moment, the crowd slowly stirred and began to react. Strong, truly too strong. This is the dominance Spirit Hall should show. This is the real power of our Spirit Hall. The Golden Generation talks a lot, but they couldn't even beat the little Shrek Academy. I think Qian Renxue is the true Golden Generation of our Spirit Hall. Exactly. Is Liana even worthy to be called the Holy Maiden? Qian Renxue is the one who should be our Holy Maiden. Most of the spectators were Spirit Hall people, and seeing Qian Renxue defeat Shrek in an instant set them alight with excitement. The previously stifled atmosphere surged, countless voices cheered, and the whole plaza became a roaring celebration. Qian Xunan sat upright, his gaze steady and calm. Bibi Dong flicked a look at him and asked, "When did you let her go on stage?" Qian Xunan looked back coolly. "Isn't she your daughter? Not even willing to call her daughter or Xiao Shui?" Bibi Dong shot him a cold glare. "I'm not arguing with you now. Humph, there'll be a reckoning between us after the competition." Qian Xunan understood exactly what she feared, that Qian Renshui's appearance might expose her identity as a prince of the Heaven Do Empire and blow her undercover plan. He didn't care. That ridiculous cover mission had always been foolish. If it failed, so be it. If not for Xiao Shui's insistence, he would never have agreed to let her continue. To conquer the Heaven Do Empire, they should strike directly. Besides, he had prepared thoroughly. The other Shui Qingye sat unperturbed in the crowd. Who could possibly connect her to Qian Renshui? Qian Xunan allowed himself a faint smile as he told Bibi Dong, "Very well. After the conference, I'll settle it with you." Since many outsiders were present, it wasn't the time to make a public scene with Bibi Dong. He turned his attention to Poison Douluo Dugubo and asked evenly, "Poison Douluo, what do you think of our Spirit Hall's auxiliary spirit master now?" Dugubo stared at Qian Xunan in disbelief. "I didn't expect you had such a trump card." Qian Shunan's smile didn't change. He shot Dugubo a cold glance, and in an instant, an oppressive, almost physical pressure descended on Dugubo. Bang! It was as if 100,000 mountains had been dropped onto him, an unimaginable weight crushing his body. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Each breath became a struggle. He poured all his spirit power into resisting Qian Shunan's pressure and barely held on, but even so, a thin trickle of blood had already leached from the corner of his mouth. "Supreme Pontiff, is this how your spirit hall treats its guests?" Dugubo managed through gritted teeth, turning to Bibi Dong for support. Bibi Dong looked at Qian Xunan. He met Dugubo's gaze and said calmly, "Consider this a warning. Remember, our spirit hall is not something any random cat or dog can question, nor something any random cat or dog can threaten. So what if you, Dugubo, have the Heaven Do Empire behind you? You're only a low-ranking titled Douluo who just recently obtained your title. Do you really think I wouldn't dare to kill you?" Cold sweat poured down Dugubo's face. He knew perfectly well that if Qian Xunan decided to kill him, no one could stop it. With his head bowed, he swallowed his pride and capitulated. "Lord Arbiter, I've learned my lesson," he said. Qian Xunan dismissed the matter once Dugubo yielded. At that moment, Ghost Douluo slipped up to Bibi Dong and murmured, "Supreme Pontiff, everything is ready." His voice was low, but Qian Xunan heard it. He glanced at Bibi Dong. She might still have plans, but he wasn't worried. At his level, he could handle whatever she sent his way. Outside the arena, all the Shrek Academy members lay collapsed. Ning Fengji swooped down and began treating them immediately. He released the 7-treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit. The pagoda's 6th layer, the light of healing, bathed Tang San in a strange, soothing radiance. Tang San's wounds closed at an astonishing rate. The meridians that had been disrupted by Shi Yue's self-made spirit ability, Crescent Moon, were knitting back together. At the same time, the pagoda's 4th layer, the light of spirit power amplification, glowed. Ning Fengji's amplification as the sect master of the 7-treasure glazed tile school, and especially when he used his 7-treasure true body, far outstripped what Ning Rongrong could produce. Under the combined effects of healing and spirit power amplification, Tang San's broken 8 spider lances slowly retracted back into his body, and his color returned to rosy health. 6 more beams of amplification light shot out, falling on the 6 Spirit Hall Academy members who sat cross-legged and poisoned on the ground. Ning Fengji couldn't directly detoxify poison, but his amplification could at least lengthen their resistance, buying them time. Flender, Grandmaster, and Liu Erlong rushed into the arena to Tang San's side. The light around him faded as Flender helped him to his feet, pressing a hand to his back and pouring spirit power into him. Tang San groaned softly and gradually opened his eyes. Bibi Dong, seeing him awake, ordered, "Since you're awake, detoxify them first." Qian Xunan lacked any interest in the lives of those he deemed useless, so he did not intervene. Tang San nodded and moved without hesitation. He picked up a slightly longer shard of one of his 8 spider lances from the ground, walked to Shi Yue, and pressed the fragment against Shi Yue's shoulder. A purplish-black glow shimmered from the shard. Then, pale rings of light coursed along it. The pain flushed from Shiyue's face as the dark discoloration on his skin quickly faded. Using the same method, Tang detoxified the other 5 Spirit Hall Academy members. One by one, the dark poison receded under his hands. Qian Xunan, satisfied with the outcome and unconcerned with anything else, stepped forward to the center and announced in a clear, resonant voice, "I hereby declare that the champion of this year's All-Continent Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Competition is Spirit Hall Academy." A thunderous roar of applause and cheers exploded across the Spirit Hall Plaza. Next came the award ceremony. Since the Golden Generation and the other 3 Soul Masters were injured and still recuperating, only Qian Renxue came forward to accept the prize. Qian Xunan walked up to her and said, "Shuier, see? This is your honor." Qian Renxue replied quickly, "I don't care about the honor. I only entered the competition for the Spirit Hall." Qian Xunan smiled faintly. "Whether you care or not, this honor is yours. These 3 spirit bones are your reward. Even though you possess the angelic divine armor, they belong to you. Use them as you wish." The moment he said that, She Yue, who had been healing nearby, suddenly coughed up blood. Hu Lina and Yan opened their eyes and turned toward the stage. Bibi Dong's face froze as she shot Qian Xun a sharp look. "What do you mean?" she snapped. "I gave those 3 spirit bones to the whole team. You're going to give them all to one person?" Qian Xunan regarded her calmly. "You gave them to the team, but if Shuer hadn't acted, your team would have lost long ago. What right do those 3 layabouts have to claim those spirit bones?" "You." Bibi Dong's expression flared with anger, but Qian Xunan only continued, cool and unbothered. "Don't forget, you handed me full authority over this Soul Master Grand competition." Bibi Dong glared, then snorted and fell silent. She had more pressing concerns. Her second spirit currently had only 7 spirit rings, and there was a 100,000-year spirit beast present now. She could not afford to miss the chance to capture it and gain another ring. Only then might she contend with Qian Xunan. So she waited for the ceremony to finish. When it did, Qian Xunan formally closed the grand competition. Just as everyone began to disperse, Bibi Dong spoke up. "Everyone, wait a moment." All eyes turned to her. The assembled crowd instinctively looked toward the Pope. Grandmaster frowned, surprised. Bibi Dong did not meet his gaze. Calmly she said, "Since this competition has concluded successfully, Ghost Douluo and Chrysanthemum Douluo, take that girl away." She raised her hand and pointed directly at Xiao Wu. The announcement sent a ripple of shock through the crowd. Tang San lunged forward instinctively to place himself between Bibi Dong and Xiao Wu. The other members of the Shrek 7 Devils stepped up behind him. Grandmaster's face went stern. "Your Holiness, what do you mean by this?" he demanded. Ghost Douluo and Chrysanthemum Douluo did not hesitate. As they moved to obey, Ning Fengji pushed forward to block them. "Your Holiness, shouldn't we clarify the situation first?" Bibi Dong gave Ning Fengji a cold look. Even though he was one of the sect masters of the upper 3 sects, she showed no sign of relenting. "Sect Master Ning, show some restraint. If you continue to obstruct, the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect will become an enemy of the Spirit Hall." Ning Fengji's face changed. The Pope's words were grave. Despite the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile sect's power and wealth, he had no wish to pick a fight with the Spirit Hall. He restrained Sword Douluo Chenshin's side and stepped back. "Wait a moment," Grandmaster bellowed, striding to the fore of the Shrek 7 Devils. He flipped his wrist and produced the Elder's token, holding it high. "I am also an Elder of the Spirit Hall and have the right to know the truth. Your Holiness, you may arrest, but you must explain yourself first. On what grounds do you detain a disciple of my Shrek Academy?" Bibi Dong's expression faltered at Grandmaster's words. The temper in her aura cooled fractionally. She replied in a low voice, "You want to know why? Then ask your disciple. If she were just a student of Shrek Academy, I would have no reason to arrest her. But if she is a spirit beast in human form, I have sufficient cause to take her." Qian Xunan's eyes brightened. He had thought the competition was over. This was an unexpected twist. His gaze fell on Xiao Wu, and he felt a strange fluctuation of spirit power. "Oh, a soft-bone rabbit," he murmured. Grandmaster froze and whirled to look at Xiao Wu. Among the 7 devils, only Tang San had drawn his attention until now. He had not realized a transformed spirit beast was hiding among them. The revelation shocked everyone. Grandmaster knew well. For a spirit beast to take human form, it had to be at least 100,000 years old. Only a 100,000-year spirit beast could undergo such a transformation. Xiao Wu remained outwardly calm, though her eyes were cold. She stared straight at Bibi Dong. "If I'm not mistaken, you're that one that got away back then, aren't you?" Bibi Dong snapped. A flash of bitter resentment lit Xiao Wu's face. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's me, the one that escaped." Bibi Dong sneered. "I never thought you'd hand yourself to me so willingly," Daimubai demanded. "Xiao Wu, what does this mean?" Tang San reached out and gripped Daimubai's shoulder. "Don't ask," he said, quietly but firmly. "Xiao Wu isn't human." "You knew?" Xiao Wu looked at him in surprise. Tang San nodded. "I knew a long time ago. The 7 devils are one. How could I stand by and let my sister be taken?" Daimubai stepped forward to stand beside him. Juju King, Ma Hongjun, Oscar, and Ning Rongrong fell in beside them. "Bibi Dong," Daimubai warned, "if you so much as touch a hair on Xiao Wu's head, our friendship ends here and now." Grandmaster lifted the elder's token and shouted in a voice that carried. At that, Bibi Dong's eyes flashed. Flander exchanged a look with Liu Erlong and Grandmaster. The 3 elders, the golden iron triangle, raised their right hands together. A brilliant golden light erupted, coalescing into an enormous, dazzling triangle of radiance above them. "We old men aren't useless yet," Grandmaster said hoarsely. "It's not your turn, you young ones, to charge in front. If you all make it back alive, there's money I've put away in the secret room of the headmaster's study. Give it to Zhao Wuji. Let him keep Shrek Academy running properly." "Your Holiness," Chrysanthemum Douluo reminded Bibi Dong, waiting for her command. One side held an elder's token. This was no longer a simple arrest. Bibi Dong snapped out of her momentary daze. Her eyes sharpened until they were blades. She stared at Grandmaster, then gave the cold order. "Seize them. Kill anyone who resists without mercy." At Bibi Dong's command, Ghost Douluo and Chrysanthemum Douluo struck at the same time. The Golden Triangle was a genuine 3-in-1 martial soul fusion, but could Flender and the other 2, whose levels were inadequate, stand against true titled Douluo? The answer was obvious. Nearby, Poison Douluo Dugubo moved suddenly. He wasn't trying to block Ghost Douluo and Chrysanthemum Douluo. He rushed straight for Tang San and Xiao Wu. If he could pull the 2 children away, the rest of Shrek Academy would be safe. A cold snort, like rolling thunder, cut through the air. Dugubo grunted, half-turned in midair, and the momentum drained from him. Qian Xunan, who had been watching, didn't intervene. This was Bibi Dong's business, not his. Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong refused to let Dugubo rescue them. She released her spirit. A vast golden phantom rose silently behind her, and 9 brilliant spirit rings ascended at once. The pressure it unleashed pinned Dugubo in place. His face changed. He had suspected the Supreme Pontiff had reached titled Douluo, but he had never imagined she could suppress him so thoroughly. 2 titled Douluo could hardly dominate another so absolutely by presence alone, yet the pressure from Bibi Dong did exactly that. Even more shocking were the 9 spirit rings circling her. 2 yellow, 2 purple, 4 black, and 1 red. The crimson ring at the end gleamed like crystal, the mark of a 100,000-year spirit ring, something only borne by century-old spirit beasts. Seeing that red ring, Dugubo's complexion drained. If he moved now, he would face an attack he could not survive. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo were both lightning fast, and though the golden triangle they faced was weaker than a true trio of titled Douluo, they made no mistake. Both released their spirits. 9 rings whirled around each of them. In an instant, 4 titled Douluo stood on the square. To the Spirit Master world, that was an extraordinary scene. Qian Xunan smiled faintly. "Mobilizing so many," he murmured. "Bibi Dong really cares about this 100,000-year spirit beast." Then a deep voice boomed across the plaza, low but carrying a domineering force that made everyone flinch. "A chrysanthemum, a little ghost. How dare you lay a hand on my son? Get out of the way." Qian Xunan looked up in surprise. Tang San, too, suddenly raised his head, eyes shining with stunned delight. Bibi Dong's face hardened. She released the pressure she held on Dugubo and stared into the sky. With a thunderous blast, Chrysanthemum Douluo Yue Guan and Ghost Douluo Gui Mei were knocked back like cannon shot. Both altered, stunned expressions flashed across their faces. Suspended above the square, a black figure hung silently as if he belonged there. A middle-aged man of about 50, tall and solid. His robe was tattered, his bronze skin weathered, his features roughened by sallow pallor, and his hair and beard were unkempt. He looked like a man who had seen too many days. Seeing him, Tang San collapsed inward. Tears that had never fallen finally spilled from his eyes. Two trembling words came from his lips. Dad, Dad. Behind the man floated an enormous black hammer. Bibi Dong, someone shouted. Bibi Dong's eyes burned with hostility as she stared up at the figure. Qian Xunan froze where he stood. Tang Hao. His voice betrayed his shock. Memories flooded Qian Xunan. When Tang Hao had once brought a 100,000-year spirit beast, a blue-silver emperor that had taken human form, to Spirit City, Qian Xunan's brother Qian Xunji had discovered it. Qian Xunji, already a titled Douluo, had set out to hunt the beast. The blue-silver emperor possessed incredible vitality, an almost immortal life force, and in the struggle, she had sacrificed herself for Tang Hao, allowing Tang Hao to ascend to titled Douluo. Qian Xunji had later been killed in the pursuit. Rumors, clues, and half-truths had all pointed to Tang Hao. Qian Xunan had resolved to settle the score. Tang Hao had to pay for what had happened to his brother. Qian Xunan's figure vanished in a flash. At the same time, Tang Hao flickered down and landed in front of the Shrek Academy students. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo retreated to Bibi Dong's side. The three titled Douluo poured their spirit power into the air. The pressure drove the surrounding spirit masters backward. Even so, Tang Hao stood unbowed, one hand hanging at his side, the other not even gripping his hammer. A cold light shone through misty eyes. "Bibi Dong," he said calmly, "do you really think you can hold me here?" Bibi Dong waved her hand, a piercing shriek tearing from her throat. From the Supreme Pontiff Palace, 4 sharp howls answered, summoning reinforcements. Tang Hao merely smiled. He had always had a temperament that made armies and banners feel secondary. One by one, spirit rings emerged beneath his feet. They rose slowly, but with each ring the aura around Tang Hao grew. The 3 massive pressures in front of him wavered as his presence strengthened. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 and finally red. The 9 spirit rings that appeared around Tang Hao matched Bibi Dong's exactly. His final ring was also a 100,000-year red ring. He swept his gaze toward the Supreme Pontiff Palace. 7 titled Douluo, he said. Spirit Hall truly lives up to its reputation. Too bad, even 7 of you. What can you do? Watch carefully. This is the true clear sky avatar. Tang San's spirits rose. Tang Hao's words were aimed straight at him. The 7th ring flared, and the enormous black clear sky hammer behind Tang Hao surged with terrifying energy. It expanded, stretching out until it towered over the city at more than 100 meters long. Its head was like a small mountain. When Tang Hao's crimson 100,000-year ring ignited, intense red patterns crawled over the hammer, and it shone a fierce scarlet. Tang Hao laughed, deep and wild. With a casual movement of his right hand, the colossal hammer plunged down. It did not descend on the 3 titled Douluo before him, but directly toward the Supreme Pontiff Palace. The air of Spirit City warped. Spirit masters below the titled level were frozen in place, and then, one after another, their minds blanked. They fell unconscious, collapsing to the ground as a roar like divine judgment shook the city. Bibi Dong, Chrysanthemum Douluo, and Ghost Douluo shot up to meet the hammer, joined by 4 figures who burst from the Supreme Pontiff Palace. 7 titled Douluo met the hammer in midair. Boom, then nothing. The 7 figures were slammed down, hurled to the ground, and the giant hammer vanished. Tang Hao spat blood, but his laughter rang on. "Bibi Dong," he said hoarsely, "one day I'll make Spirit Hall pay every last debt. That day is not far off." His figure flickered. Tang Hao scooped up the unconscious Tang San and Xiao Wu and started to leave. A voice called from the sky, "Tang Hao, when will you repay what you owe me?" Everyone looked up. There, suspended against the blue, stood a golden figure, an angelic warrior in gilded armor, 6 wings unfurled like a god. He was blinding to behold. Even the titled Douluo who dared to meet his gaze felt a chill. 9 red spirit rings glowed around him, each ring the color of blood. "Beat Tang Hao up! Beat Tang Hao up!" Qian Xunan hovered in the sky, 6 angelic wings unfurled and 9 blood-red spirit rings glowing around him. A golden radiance poured from his body like a god, the pressure so overwhelming that no one dared to look up. Qian Xunan sneered. "Tang Hao, if you want to leave, you need my permission." At his words, an incandescent inferno erupted around him, and from that sea of flame, a colossal winged angel of blazing light unfolded. Its wings spanned 100 meters, blotting out the sky. The moment it appeared, everyone's faces went pale. The creature exuded an unprecedented, crushing pressure. Qian Xunan stood in the void with a gigantic sword, arrogant and impassive, looking down on all as if he were a deity. Below, shock rippled through the crowd. "How is this possible?" Sword Douluo muttered in disbelief. Dugubo next to him whispered, "A 100,000-year spirit ring is already rare. For an adjudicator elder of Spirit Hall to have 9 of them, 9 100,000-year spirit rings, that's incredible. How did he do it? If someone tried to absorb a 100,000-year ring too early, they'd explode and die. How can he have 9? Ning Fengji stared up in stunned silence. Even the Spirit Hall members were shaken by Qian Xunan's display. My heavens, is this Lord Arbiter's true strength? Terrifying. 900,000-year spirit rings, stronger than the Supreme Pontiff. This is on another level. They all watched Qian Xunan in disbelief. Tang Hao, carrying Tang San and Xiao Wu, tried to flee, but Qian Xunan blocked his path in the sky. Tang Hao frowned. "Who are you, and why are you stopping me?" Qian Shunan's gaze was icy as he answered, "Adjudicator Elder of the Spirit Hall, Qian Xunan. The Supreme Pontiff you killed was my elder brother." No sooner had he spoken than he moved like a blur and materialized before Tang Hao. Tang Hao didn't have a chance to react before Qian Shunan's foot slammed down on his head. Terrifying power exploded from the strike. Energy rippled outward and a vast aura surged into the sky. Tang Hao was sent flying, tumbling hard to the ground in front of the Supreme Pontiff Palace. With a thunderous crash, he made a massive impact crater, dust and debris billowing up as shockwaves rolled out. So powerful, the onlookers breathed. Tang Hao crawled out of the pit, blood streaming from the corner of his mouth, clearly badly injured. He used his body to shield Tang San and Xiao Wu. Despite his wounds, he glared up at Qian Xunan, furious. "So you're determined to fight me today?" Qian Xunan sneered. "Surrender, and I might let you suffer less." Tang Hao pushed Tang San and Xiao Wu to safety and hauled himself from the crater. He stretched out a hand and the massive clear sky hammer materialized. With a solemn look at Qian Xunan, he charged. Qian Shunan's eyes narrowed. "Overestimating your strength." "Second spirit ability, Shattering Strike," Tang Hao roared. Brilliant blue light erupted from the hammer, lightning coiling around it as he smashed it toward Qian Xunan. The temperature around them spiked, space itself seeming to warp. Qian Shunan's expression did not change. He waved his right hand and a white-hot energy gathered in his palm, forming a dragon of blazing energy that met Tang Hao's lightning strike head-on. Boom! The collision reverberated through the air, violent shockwaves shaking Spirit City and cracking the ground. Tang Hao's forward charge was torn apart, and he was hurled backward. Qian Xunan closed the distance with terrifying speed and landed a heavy punch on Tang Hao's face. Tang Hao crashed into a wall, the building shook, and his face was smeared with blood. He clawed his way out of the rubble, clutching his chest, fear flickering in his eyes. Though not a towering figure, Tang Hao's body contained immense power. Letting out a low growl, he sprang up again, gripping the clear sky hammer and charging. They collided once more. Qian Xunan snorted and sent Tang Hao sprawling again. The entire Spirit Hall watched in stunned silence. Just moments ago, Tang Hao had single-handedly driven 7 Spirit Hall, titled Douluo, back. Now, he was being toyed with like a fledgling before the Adjudicator Elder. The power disparity was absolute. Qian Xunan regarded Tang Hao coolly. "Back when you just became a titled Douluo, how could you have killed my elder brother?" Tang Hao rose, eyes hard, and shouted, "Disorder-splitting windhammer technique." His clear sky hammer blurred as it whirled wildly. Tang Hao's attack speed spiked, his strikes bristling with violent force as he smashed toward Qian Xunan once more. Chapter 34, Third Soul Skill, Angelic Protection. Tang Hao's offense came in a blur, each move and strike packed with terrifying force. Qian Xunan, however, remained unflinching, a cold light flashing in his eyes as his robe billowed. In the next instant, he lifted his left leg and kicked out. Tang Hao couldn't withstand it. He was sent flying, smashing through a nearby building. Qian Xunan stepped forward in pursuit, his fists radiating a terrifying light as he struck again. With a dull thud, Tang Hao was hurled through the air once more. Qian Xunan followed up relentlessly, each punch and kick carrying destructive power. Tang Hao was utterly unable to resist, repeatedly rocketed away. Bang, 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 the muffled impacts kept coming. Tang Hao's body grew heavier with each blow, until finally he was blasted so deep he crashed into the ground beneath Spirit City. Everyone watching was stunned. This was only their first exchange, and Tang Hao lay defeated. The gap between them was greater than anyone had imagined. Qian Xunan did not finish him off. He wanted to push Tang Hao to his limits, to see what method had once let Tang Hao kill his elder brother, a level 95 titled Douluo. Boom, Tang Hao exploded out of the earth. He stared at Qian Xunan in midair, icy and covered in blood. His body was badly deformed from the impacts, looking pitiful. Frustration filled him. He had expected to take Qian Xunan down, but now realized the difference in strength was simply too vast. "Father!" Tang San shouted nearby. Tang Hao glanced at Tang San and said, voice strained, "Xiao San, you all go. Leave now. I'll hold them off." He knew Qian Xunan's power and understood he probably wouldn't walk away alive. He called out loudly, "Poison Douluo, Sword Douluo, Sect Master Ning, Poison Douluo Dugu Bo, Sword Douluo Chen Xin, and Ning Fengji all turned to him." Tang Hao continued, "I don't think I can leave today, but I'll fight with my life to hold the Spirit Hall members off. Please, 3 of you, take them and go. If I survive, I'll repay this kindness." The 3 exchanged looks and nodded in understanding. Dugu Bo grabbed Tang San and Xiao Wu and fled. Chen Xin and Ning Fengji, along with the 3 Shrek Academy teachers, followed, desperately escaping outward. Qian Xunan's gaze stayed fixed on Tang Hao. He didn't pursue the fleeing group, he only cared about Tang Hao. The others held no grudge with him, and he had no interest in helping Bibi Dong snatch a spirit ring. Besides, Bibi Dong wanted the soft-bone rabbit's spirit ring. If the rabbit escaped, that would actually be to his advantage. So when Bibi Dong shouted, "Chase them! Don't let the spirit beast escape!" she and the spirit hall, titled Douluo, immediately took off after the fleeing group. Seeing that, Tang Hao gripped his clear sky hammer and gave chase, determined to stop the spirit hall members. Qian Xunan watched him and said, "Your opponent is me. Do you dare be distracted?" In a blink, Qian Xunan became an afterimage. He arrived after Tang Hao but reached him first, materializing directly in front of him and kicking him squarely in the chest. Tang Hao was sent flying. He spat a mouthful of fresh blood, his strength significantly sapped, his aura diminished. "With this much power, how did you manage to kill my elder brother back then?" Qian Xunan asked calmly. Tang Hao coughed, forced himself to his feet, and a ferocious look crossed his face. "Today," he rasped, "if Tang Hao doesn't die, I will be irreconcilably hostile with Spirit Hall." A terrifying power erupted from him. The clear sky hammer in his hands surged with energy, and an overwhelming killing intent poured from his body. "Killing God Domain," he roared. Around him, soul fluctuations swept outward. He waved his palm, and the clear sky hammer unleashed a golden radiance that spread for thousands of feet. Lightning flashed and thunder rolled. 3 spirit rings on Tang Hao exploded at once. "Ring detonation, Great Sumeru Hammer," Tang Hao bellowed. The 3 black spirit rings on his body, 10,000-year spirit rings, all detonated. The shockwave hit Qian Xunan with raw, explosive force. Tang Hao knew ordinary ring detonations wouldn't harm a powerhouse like Qian Xunan, so he detonated only 10,000-year rings or greater and detonated 3 at once. The Great Sumeru Hammer manifested with a dread aura, Tang Hao's momentum peaking. Dense soul power enveloped him as the hammer expanded. He roared and slammed the clear sky hammer down. Qian Xunan watched impassively, eyes narrowing. Detonating spirit rings to gain explosive energy. Interesting. "You used this to injure my elder brother back then, didn't you?" he muttered. Despite the power of the move, he remained unmoved. As the gigantic Great Sumeru Hammer fell, the 3rd spirit ring on Qian Xunan flared to life. A colossal angelic phantom materialized behind him, wrapping its arms around him. Its extended, translucent wings unfurled and enveloped Qian Xunan. The massive hammer struck the angelic phantom. Energy ripples radiated outward. Trees, flowers, grass, even rocks within several hundred meters turned to dust where the shockwave passed. Bang! A terrifying explosion shook the area, but the angelic phantom showed no damage. Qian Xunan stood perfectly still, utterly unaffected. That was his third soul skill, angelic protection. Blood overflowed from Tang Hao's lips. Shock and disbelief surged through him. He spat again and stared at Qian Xunan, utterly stunned. "How is this possible?" he whispered. The rings exploded. Everything exploded. Tang Hao stared at Qian Xunan in disbelief. He had detonated 3 black spirit rings, each over 10,000 years old. That kind of power should have been enough to put up a fight, even against a Limit Douluo. Yet in front of Qian Xunan it had done nothing. How was that possible? Another mouthful of blood left Tang Hao. Repeatedly triggering ring explosion on 3 spirit rings had already drained him, and his prior injuries left him at the edge of collapse. The angelic phantom that had shrouded Qian Xunan dissipated. He looked at Tang Hao with complete calm. "It had some effect," Qian Xunan said lightly. "Try detonating your 100,000-year ring too." Tang Hao's face twisted with fury and dread when he saw Xunan unharmed. Qian Xunan's expression never changed. "If you won't use it, then I'll make you," he said, and extended his hand. Golden light pooled in his palm and coalesced into a slender golden longsword. Spirit power rippled from it, its edge seeming able to cut the sky itself. "Go," Qian Xunan murmured, and thrust the sword forward. Tang Hao's pupils shrank. Death radiated from that blade. He knew a single strike would kill him, even as a level 95 titled Douluo. He tried to fall back, but the sword arrived faster than he could move. There was only one option left: ring explosion. There wasn't time to think. Instinct took over. His remaining 6 spirit rings, 2 yellow, 2 purple, 1 black, and 1 red, burst at once. A surge of energy poured into him and immediately formed a colossal phantom, the Great Sumeru Hammer. It loomed like a small mountain, blood-red sigils blazing across its face, thunder roaring from its impact as it rose to block the attack. The golden longsword met the Great Sumeru Hammer with blinding speed. The collision sent shockwaves outward, tearing at the air and shattering everything nearby. Weaker spirit masters around them felt pressure so intense, some began to bleed from their 7 orifices. The blast roared through the hall. Tang Hao was flung backward. Qian Xunan, however, stood firm, unaffected. The Great Sumeru Hammer shattered under the strike of the golden sword. Tang Hao stared in disbelief. Even after detonating every remaining ring and unleashing his strongest attack, he could not stop a single move from Qian Xunan. How powerful was this opponent? Before Tang Hao could process it, the golden sword flashed and pierced his shoulder. The blade carried him like a tether. His body slammed into the far wall with a thunderous crash. A large crater tore into the stone, dust and debris flying. Bones splintered under the impact. Tang Hao spat blood. His head hung down, hair matted, clothes in tatters, his body a ruin. 9 spirit rings had detonated. His spirit power was completely spent. He clung to the last thin thread of life. An ordinary person could have finished him in that state. Qian Xunan materialized before him, calm as an ancient well. He looked down at Tang Hao. "Ring explosion is an interesting technique," he said. "It seems you used it to injure my elder brother once." Tang Hao lifted his eyes and roared through his pain. "That's right. Back then, Qian Xunji chased Yin and me to take her spirit ring. He cornered Yin. She sacrificed herself for me. Qian Xunji deserved to die. I used everything and detonated my rings. In the end, Qian Xunji died." Qian Xunan's voice was flat. "Do you really think you killed my elder brother?" "You were only a newly minted title Douluo then," he went on. "Even with ring explosion, could you kill a level 95 title Douluo?" Tang Hao sneered despite himself. "If I didn't kill him, then how else did Qian Xunji die?" Qian Xunan asked, "How many rings did you detonate when you killed him?" 2, Tang Hao spat. 200-year rings. 2? Qian Xunan murmured, incredulous. He looked at Tang Hao's arrogant, battered face and realized the man genuinely believed he had killed Qian Xunji. Letting him keep that belief would be easier on Tang Hao, easier for his pride to swallow. But it wasn't true. No matter how powerful Tang Hao's ring explosion, 200-year rings detonated by a titled Douluo could not have slain a level 95 titled Douluo. At best, they would have caused severe injury. The level gap of 5 ranks was an enormous chasm. Ring explosion couldn't bridge that distance, not with only 2 low-level rings. A coldness crept into Qian Xunan's eyes. If Tang Hao hadn't killed his elder brother, then who had? In his mind, another figure rose, Bibi Dong. 36. Bibi Dong is the prime suspect. Qian Xunan's mind went straight to Bibi Dong. He had long suspected that his elder brother had been murdered after returning to Spirit Hall, but until now, he hadn't had proof or a clear suspect. Now the picture was clearer. Who profited most from his brother's death? Certainly not the 6 great consecrated elders. They kept to their own affairs and gained nothing. The ordinary elders of Spirit Hall might have had motive, but not nearly as much as Bibi Dong. With his brother gone, she could openly be with Yu Xiaogang and, more important, ascend to Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall. In short, she benefited the most. Add to that her intense hatred for his elder brother. Apart from the clear sky Douluo standing before him, she was probably the person who most wanted him dead. Still, suspicion wasn't proof. Qian Xunan knew exactly what he wanted and what he needed. He did not want to settle this with raw vengeance. He wanted justice for his elder brother. Justice required reason and evidence. If he killed Bibi Dong out of personal hatred, the world would only say he'd done it to seize the pontiff's position. No one would believe he'd slain her because she had murdered his brother. That was why he intended to become head of the Hall of Judgment, so one day he would have the authority to put Bibi Dong on trial. Bibi Dong, he said low and cold, when I find the evidence, I will judge you before the whole world. I will punish you for every one of your crimes. That day will not be far off. He turned to the broken man in front of him. You grievously wounded my elder brother back then. You are one of his killers. Any last words? Tang Hao looked up through blood and laughter at the same time. Maniacal laughter turned to ragged cries. Ha ha ha! Tears streaked his face. Ah Yin, little San, I'm sorry. Qian Xunan's gaze hardened. An overwhelming, terrifying force suddenly surged out from his body and swept over Tang Hao like a scythe. There was a thunderous blast. Tang Hao, the generation's god of slaughter, the legendary clear sky Douluo, tore apart. His body exploded. There was no more of him. In the forest, Poison Duo and the others, Tang San and Xiao Wu, fled at once. Sword Duo and Ning Fengji brought up the rear. The golden triangle covered the very back. Seeing Spirit Hall's forces closing in, Grandmaster threw out an idea. We'll stay and hold them off. Stay behind? Liu Erlong glared at Yu Xiaogang in shock. They'll chase Xiao Wu and the others. We'll hold them here. Flender nodded. Xiao Wu and Little San are Shrek Academy disciples. Even if it costs us our lives, we must protect them. Yu Xiaogang's expression was complex. He had no intention of dying. He knew Bibi Dong still harbored feelings for him and decided to take a gamble. If my dying could ensure Little San and the others escape, I would have died already, he said. But I cannot die. Only I can stop Bibi Dong. Liu Erlong met his gaze and without hesitation nodded. Xiaogang, whatever you decide, I'm with you. They heard someone approaching. Someone's coming. Get ready, Yu Xiaogang shouted. Spirit power surged from the 3 of them. Grandmaster's spirit, Luo San Pao, erupted forth, empowered by Flender and Liu Erlong. A dragon's roar split the air. Luo San Pao swelled to enormous size in seconds. Diamond-like scales surfaced over its stout body, muscles thickened, and 2 twisted horns sprouted from its head. Blue-purple light shimmered along its form and, under the golden triangle's influence, began to turn to gold. In a few breaths, it reached 20 meters in length. Its back split open and a pair of massive wings unfurled. Its round, simple eyes now shone with imperial gold. The creature had shed its pig-like or dog-like appearance and become an awe-inspiring golden dragon. 3 gigantic golden pythons coiled around the dragon and took to the sky. Yu Xiaogang stood astride one of them, clutching a golden staff. Luo San Pao retracted its wings and dove like a meteor, body blazing with golden light, twisting midair as it fell. Thunderous wind fart, Luo San Pao that splits heaven and earth. Grandmaster roared, naming the attack. A plume of golden mist spewed from Luo San Pao's tail and shot toward the oncoming figure, Ghost Douluo. He saw the attack and gathered his ghostly chi, forming a razor-sharp scythe of spectral energy that cleaved into the golden mist. The mist vanished under the scythe. The force of the collision hurled Yu Xiaogang and the others back. Yu spat blood, tasting iron on his tongue. Bibi Dong and the Spirit Hall contingent arrived right then. Seeing Yu Xiaogang injured, Bibi Dong's expression flickered, then she raised a hand to halt her people. Her voice was cold. Yu Xiaogang, do you truly think 3 useless people like you can stop me? Bleeding, Yu Xiaogang pressed a hand to his chest and dropped to his knees before her. Your Holiness the Supreme Pontiff, I beg you, spare Tang San and Xiao Wu. He coughed and spat more blood as he knelt. The sight of him pained Bibi Dong, and for a moment something like regret tightened her face. Yu wiped the blood from his lips and looked up at her with desperate, pleading eyes. Erlong, I'll call you Erlong one last time. Please, spare Tang San and Xiao Wu. If you spare them, I'll die willingly if that's what it takes. You. Bibi Dong stared at him, her body trembling violently. Chapter 37. Disgusting Couple. Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong's face was hard with resolve as she stared at Yu Xiaogang. Yu Xiaogang, she said, so now you're begging me? Yu Xiaogang looked back at her steadily. Donger, Tang San is my only disciple. The bond between Xiao Wu and Tang San is such that if Xiao Wu dies, Tang San won't want to live either. Are you really willing to make me lose my only disciple? Seeing him like that, Bibi Dong hesitated for a moment, but Yu Xiaogang seized the chance to press on. With your power, you can still find other 100,000-year spirit beasts in the future. If you let Xiao Wu go, I'll research the most suitable spirit beasts for your spirit. With my theories, some 10,000-year spirit beasts can rival the strength of a 100,000-year one. I'm begging you, please let Xiao Wu go. Bibi Dong studied him, then said slowly, It's not impossible for me to let Tang San and Xiao Wu go, but you'll have to agree to one condition. What condition? Yu Xiaogang asked immediately. Bibi Dong's eyes flicked to Liu Erlong, who stood nearby, and she said, I want you to leave that cheap woman and return to my side. Those words stunned everyone. Flender, Liu Erlong, even the Grandmaster. Liu Erlong, whose temper was already fiery, didn't shrink. She stepped forward and spat. Who are you calling a cheap woman? Who do you think? Bibi Dong sneered back. Shameless. Seducing your own elder brother. Isn't that the behavior of a cheap woman? Liu Erlong went white with fury. What right do you have, Bibi Dong? You're the Supreme Pontiff's wife, and you come here to steal a man from me. How dare you criticize me? Humph. At least I'm not like you, having an incestuous relationship with your own brother. Bibi Dong retorted coldly. And you had an affair with your teacher. Shut up! Liu Erlong snarled. Then Bibi Dong moved before she could finish and slapped her hard across the face. The blow sent Liu Erlong reeling. She clutched her reddening cheek, and a terrifying surge of spirit power erupted from her. But no matter how strong Liu Erlong was, she was only a spirit saint. Before Bibi Dong, she was insignificant. Bibi Dong looked at her with contempt. Bitch! You're the bitch! Liu Erlong roared. Hearing that only made Bibi Dong angrier. Fine, you cheap woman, how dare you insult me? Today I'll kill you. As Bibi Dong advanced, Yu Xiaogang stepped in front of Liu Erlong without hesitation. Bibi Dong stopped and leveled him a cold look. Yu Xiaogang, are you going to stop me from killing this cheap woman? Yu Xiaogang met her eyes and said, All right, I promise. As long as you let everyone else go, I'll return to your side. When he said that, Liu Erlong froze, tears bursting from her eyes. Xiaogang, you, she whispered in disbelief. He turned to her. Erlong, I have no choice. If I don't agree, Tang San and Xiao Wu won't be permitted to leave, and neither will you or Flender. Erlong, please understand, Yu Xiaogang added. Liu Erlong's sorrow overflowed. She fell to her knees, tears streaking her face. Xiaogang, fine, go. But I'll wait for you forever. If you don't come back for a day, I'll wait a day. If you don't come back for a lifetime, I'll wait a lifetime. Bibi Dong laughed scornfully. Come back? Do you honestly think Xiaogang will return for someone like you? Liu Erlong glared at her. Bibi Dong, don't think that because you're the Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall you can do anything. One day I'll take Xiaogang back. Just you? Bibi Dong sneered. At that moment, Yu Xiaogang said, Old Flender, take Erlong away. Flender bowed and led Liu Erlong away. He had no choice. Bibi Dong walked up to Yu Xiaogang, a cold smile on her lips. She lifted his chin with 2 fingers and whispered, Xiaogang, after all this wandering around, you still came back to me. I told you, You can't escape my grasp. Even if you get my body, you won't get my heart, Yu Xiaogang replied immediately. Bibi Dong's smile only sharpened. Is that so? If you refuse to cooperate, I can always go after the people you care about. Crushing that great female dragon should be as easy as crushing an ant, right? Oh, and don't forget, you promised to let me study your spirit rings. Yu Xiaogang stood there stunned, silent. Bibi Dong turned and fixed Ghost Douluo, aka Gumei, with a hard stare. Was it you who harmed Xiaogang? Gumei answered quickly. Your Holiness, you said that anyone who blocked the pursuit of that 100,000-year spirit beast should be killed without mercy. Bibi Dong's eyes went ice cold. Then she slapped Guimei across the face. Blood spurted from the corner of his mouth. Guimei, you've served me for so many years. Do I still need to teach you how to do your work? She sneered, turning back to Yu Xiaogang. If there's a next time, it won't be just a slap. Yes, Guimei immediately knelt on one knee and accepted the reprimand. Bibi Dong looked around at the gathered Douluo and said, Let's go. We're returning to Spirit Hall. At the Hall of Judgment, Qian Renshui stood before Qian Xunan. Little Shui, do you really intend to go through with that plan? He asked. Qian Renshui nodded. I've planned for so long. I can't let all my efforts be for nothing. Qian Xunan knew the plan was reckless, but he also knew he couldn't stop her without risking her Dao heart. He sighed and looked at her. Do you remember the secret technique I taught you for concealing your aura? I remember, she replied. Then go, he said, but you mustn't neglect your cultivation anymore. I won't, she promised. Don't worry, Qian Xunan added. I'll investigate what really happened back then and clear your father's name. Qian Renshui bowed and left. Just then, a spirit Douluo came up to Qian Xunan. Hallmaster, Supreme Pontiff Bibi Dong has returned. She released those people, but brought back only Yu Xiaogang. Qian Shunan's eyes darkened. Immediately convene the first Hall of Judgment meeting, he ordered. Some matters must finally be concluded. Chapter 38, Ruling Conference. A few days later, the Hall of Judgment was finished, and the first Judgment Conference was called. Inside the vast chamber, a huge round table dominated the center. The 7 great consecrated elders sat around it, while Qian Xunan occupied the main seat. All 7 had accepted his invitation. No one in their right mind would refuse an invite from someone with Qian Xunan's strength. Thousand Jun Douluo, standing nearby, asked, Little Xunan, why convene a judgment conference all of a sudden? Demon-subduing Douluo added, Yes, Xunan, is there a particular reason for this? Qian Xunan answered calmly, It's a judgment conference. So, as the name implies, it's for judgment. Judgment? You're going to judge someone? Luan Douluo asked. Qian Xunan nodded. Naturally, he clapped once. Bring them in. The next moment, 3 members of Spirit Hall's golden generation were escorted into the hall. A spirit Douluo shoved them forward and ordered, Kneel. Hooded and blindfolded, Shi Yue, Yan, and Hulina were hauled to the center. The escort kicked their feet so they dropped to their knees before Qian Xunan. The 3 shouted in protest, What are you doing? How dare you humiliate me? I am Spirit Hall's holy maiden. Hulina cried, Let Nana go, you bastards. Yan shouted, Who are you? If the Supreme Pontiff finds out you've kidnapped us, you won't get away with this. Sheiyue barked. The Spirit Douluo pulled their hoods off. When they saw the 7 great consecrated elders seated in the Hall of Judgment, their faces drained of color. Even being part of the Golden Generation, they rarely saw these figures in person. Fear settled over them. Xunan, you called us here just to judge these 3? Gold Crocodile Douluo said. Lion Douluo snorted. If it's only about them, deal with them yourself. There's no need to consult us. Qian Xunan smiled slightly. I didn't invite the consecrated elders just for their sake. Everyone, pay attention. He turned to the 3 kneeling youths. Do you remember the promise you made? They trembled. Sheiyue managed to force out. We already won. What more do you want? Qian Shunan's gaze was steady. Won? Did you win that match? If I hadn't set a contingency beforehand, Spirit Hall's reputation would have been ruined by you. He added coldly, and I never said that victory would exempt you from punishment. You said if we lost, you'd punish us, but we won. Yan protested. Someone tell them what I actually said that day, Qian Xunan ordered. The Spirit Douluo beside him answered, That day, Lord Arbiter said if you performed poorly, you would receive the punishment you deserved. Qian Xunan's smile hardened. Golden Generation, Purple Record Medalists, Spirit King, those were your boasts before the competition. In the end, you couldn't even beat an unknown academy like Shrek. What kind of trash are you? Which of you three can say you performed well? He demanded. No one answered. The three glanced at one another, helpless. After a long moment, Juliana raised her chin. But if we hadn't drained the Shrek Seven Devils' spirit power, Qian Renshui wouldn't have won so easily. Before she could finish, a sharp slap rang out. Juliana's body flew backwards, smashed into a table, and collapsed to the floor, coughing blood. 5 bloody finger marks bloomed across her face. You depleted their spirit power? Qian Xunan sneered. As Holy Maiden of Spirit Hall, is your job really to pick on a small academy? Besides triggering a martial soul fusion with Xie Yue, what did you actually do? He looked at her with contempt. Trash. Do you even deserve the title Holy Maiden of Spirit Hall? The three knelt, faces pale. They knew Qian Xunan's strength. If he chose to kill them, even the Supreme Pontiff might not be able to stop him. Terror filled their eyes. Qian Xunan continued, It's time to fulfill your promise. I strip you of your Golden Generation status and your Purple Record medals. Hulina, your Holy Maiden title is revoked. You three will be sent to train in Death Canyon for 3 years. After that, you will be expelled from Spirit City and reassigned to branch halls. You are forbidden from returning to Spirit City for 10 years. The three went ashen. They were utterly helpless. Qian Xunan wanted them gone, as far away as possible. But punishment alone wasn't his only motive. This public humiliation was bait. A voice then called, from outside the Hall of Judgment. The Golden Generation were chosen by me, the Purple Record medals awarded by me, and the Holy Maiden's position personally bestowed by me. This Hall of Judgment has no jurisdiction to pass sentence on this pontiff. The doors swung open. Bibi strode in, flanked by Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo, and spoke loudly at the center of the hall. Qian Xunan glanced at her and smiled inwardly. Bibi, I was worried you wouldn't come. At that moment, Bibi appeared at the entrance of the Hall of Judgment. Her long skirt trailed across the floor, a purple crown embroidered with gold resting on her head. Her pale skin seemed to glow like crystal, and her eyes shone a light blue. She carried an air of nobility and poise, inhumanly beautiful, arresting to behold. Bibi walked slowly into the main hall. She fixed her gaze on Qian Xunan, frowning. Qian Xunan, those 3 members of the Golden Generation were trained by me. Even if you want to cripple them, you need my permission. Elder of the Hall of Judgment, aren't you overstepping your authority? Her tone was ice cold. Qian Xunan studied her and replied evenly, Is His Holiness the Supreme Pontiff asking me to spare her disciples? Bibi face hardened. This isn't protection. This is the truth. They deserve a chance. Qian Xunan smiled. And what if I insist on intervening? Bibi turned to the elders of the Hall of Worship. Honored elders, you must uphold justice for me. If the Hall of Judgment's reach extends into the affairs of my Supreme Pontiff Palace, then what need is there for a Supreme Pontiff at all? Qian Xunan laughed aloud, a rich, unrestrained sound. Ha ha ha. He swept his gaze across everyone present. Do you even remember why the Hall of Judgment was founded? He asked. If you don't, I'll remind you. The Hall of Judgment is independent of the Supreme Pontiff Palace and the Hall of Worship. It exists to deal with matters that violate the Spirit Hall's rules. Before the Hall of Judgment, the Supreme Pontiff was no different from a commoner. Therefore, where the Supreme Pontiff can act, I will act. Where she cannot, I will act even more. Bibi shot back. On what grounds do you abolish the Golden Generation, whom I personally chose? Qian Xunan's answer was blunt. Because the 3 of them promised me themselves, if their performance failed, they would be at my disposal. As Hall Master of the Hall of Judgment, how could I go back on that? Bibi turned to the Hall of Worship elders again. I can accept revoking their Golden Generation titles and stripping their Purple Record medals. But Huliena's status as Holy Maiden was earned through layers of assessments. How can you abolish that so casually? Chandalu intervened, glancing at Qian Xunan. Xiaoan, that's enough. Don't go too far. Qian Xunan laughed again. Too far. He looked directly at Chandalu. Does someone like that even deserve to be the Holy Maiden of our Spirit Hall? I propose we strip Huliena of the title and give it to Qian Renshui. He turned to address the assembly. You've all seen Qian Renshui's strength. In what way is Xiao Shui inferior to Hu Liena? Bibi Dong's eyes narrowed with contempt. Inwardly, she sneered. So he wants that upstart to be Holy Maiden. Out loud, she said, Qian Renshui is indeed powerful, but she's not currently in our spirit hall. How can she be appointed Holy Maiden when she isn't here? Qian Xunan answered coolly. Then remove Hu Liena now and reserve the title for Xiao Shui when she returns. No, Bibi Dong said stiffly. I will not agree to that. Qian Xunan's smile turned to a sneer. I don't need your agreement, nor do I need the elders' top approval. Today I abolish Hu Liena. Whether you agree or not, she is unworthy to be Holy Maiden of our spirit hall. He fixed Bibi Dong with a cold look. If any of you object, I can make the three of them bleed on the spot and end this right now. If anyone is confident enough to stop me, step forward. Bibi Dong's expression went dark. She knew Qian Xunan's power. She might not be a match for him in a true showdown. He was blatantly trampling her authority. The anger surged through her, but she forced herself to remain calm. If Qian Xunan really killed the Golden Generation, the consequences would be unbearable. Before the situation could escalate further, Azure Luan Douluo stepped forward to mediate. Supreme Pontiff, Hu Liena's performance was indeed poor this time. They had an agreement with Xunan. In my opinion, Hu Liena should temporarily step down as Holy Maiden. The other elders nodded slightly. None wanted to provoke Qian Xunan. Bibi Dong swallowed her anger and said, If that is the will here, then Adjudicator Elder, proceed as you see fit. At that, Hu Liena cried out to Bibi Dong, Teacher, save me! Bibi Dong looked at her coldly. You were inferior in skill. You can only blame yourself. I cannot protect you now. Hu Liena collapsed to the floor, wretched and ashamed. The other two members of the Golden Generation bowed their heads, unwilling to meet Bibi Dong's gaze. Teacher, I won't go to Death Canyon, Hu Liena said desperately. I want to go to Slaughter City. Everyone in the hall had heard of Slaughter City, the brutal crucible from which Bibi Dong herself had once emerged and risen to fame as a god of slaughter. Hu Liena understood that if she could survive Slaughter City and return as a god of slaughter, she might redeem herself and reclaim the Holy Maiden title. Are you sure you've thought this through? Bibi Dong asked. Hu Liena nodded fiercely. Yes. If the Hall Master calls me a waste, then I will prove him wrong. If I can come out of Slaughter City alive, won't that prove myself? Bibi Dong's expression softened. That's right. If you can become a god of slaughter, the Spirit Hall will recognize you. Hu Liena turned to Qian Xunan. Lord Arbiter, I will go to Slaughter City, become a god of slaughter, and return. I will prove myself to you. Qian Xunan remained unmoved. A god of slaughter? He had just killed one. What made this any different? Bibi Dong was about to lead Hu Liena away when Qian Xunan called after them. Go. That was only the appetizer, Bibi Dong. The true judgment is only beginning. It's time to judge your sins too. Silence fell. Every face in the hall registered shock and disbelief. Qian Xunan really intended to judge the Supreme Pontiff. Bibi Dong's sins! Bibi Dong's sins! The cry cut through the Hall of Judgment. Chrysanthemum Douluo, standing nearby, stepped forward instantly. Qian Xunan, are you trying to judge the Supreme Pontiff? Ghost Douluo echoed the outrage. Supreme Pontiff, how can you be judged by him? Qian Xunan didn't answer with words. In the next instant, his body blurred into an afterimage and he was suddenly in front of the two titled Douluo. Before anyone could react, he lashed out, slapping both Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo, two sharp, resounding slaps that echoed through the hall. The two titled Douluo were hurled back. As they hit the floor beside Bibi Dong, fresh blood and broken teeth flew from their mouths. They lay there, battered and spitting, while Qian Xunan looked down at them with cold contempt. Two obedient good-for-nothings, he sneered. What did you call me? I am speaking with your master. Why do you interrupt? Are you going to bear her sins for her? The two titled Douluo fell silent, anger painted across their faces, but unable to answer. Qian Xunan turned his attention to Bibi Dong. His voice was flat and deliberate. Bibi Dong, let's talk about your sins. Bibi Dong's face went cold. The seven great consecrated elders exchanged uncomfortable glances. They hadn't expected Qian Xunan to dredge up old scandals. Bibi Dong lifted her chin and said, Qian Xunan, what do you want to do? Let's start from the beginning. Qian Xunan said. When you sat as Supreme Pontiff of Spirit Hall, when you were my elder brother's wife, you had an affair with an elder of Spirit Hall. Everyone here knows that, do they not? A shadow crossed Bibi Dong's face. The consecrated elders looked away. Many had hoped such matters were behind them. Those are old affairs between me and Qian Xunji, Bibi Dong replied, sharp. None of your concern. Fine. Qian Xunan's voice did not change. Then let's discuss recent events. How does Spirit Hall Academy select participants for the Soul Master Tournament? Not by merit, but by connections. As Supreme Pontiff, you let our youth cultivation system rot into corruption and inactivity. Do you admit your guilt? You pursued the people of Shrek and then let them all escape, letting criminals go. Do you admit that? You brought your former lover back into Spirit Hall and disrupted discipline. Do you admit that? Bibi Dong's breathing grew heavy. Ice radiated off her like a chill wind. Her fists were clenched so tight the knuckles whitened. Qian Xunan repeated, Bibi Dong, do you admit your guilt? She forced herself to calm, then snapped. So what? Even if all of that is true, what are you going to do about it? Do you intend to remove me from the pontificate because I sheltered a few fugitives and reinstated an elder? Turning to the consecrated elders, she said, Honored consecrated elders, I, Bibi Dong, have made mistakes, but do you intend to strip me of the position of Supreme Pontiff? Qian Douluo, the high priest, spoke up. Bibi Dong is guilty of lapses, but she has kept Spirit Hall running in recent years. These are minor offenses. I sentence you to 1 year of house arrest in Spirit Hall. Do you accept? Bibi Dong smiled thinly. I accept the punishment. The other consecrated elders murmured assent. 1 year of house arrest, given Bibi Dong's usual seclusion inside Spirit Hall, felt like not much of a penalty. Qian Xunan let out a short, contemptuous laugh. Father, he said, addressing Qian Douluo, don't forget who I am. I am the Hall Master of the Hall of Judgment. From its founding, the Hall of Judgment has had one rule. If the Supreme Pontiff breaks the law, he or she is to be judged like any commoner. Right now, you are spectators. The judge of Bibi Dong is me. He fixed every consecrated elder with an icy look. These charges may not be enough to remove her from office, but as Supreme Pontiff, she has failed to set an example. She abused her authority for personal gain. By Spirit Hall law, she should receive 50 strokes before all of Spirit Hall, and that rebel Yu Xiaogang shall be thrown into Spirit Hall's dungeon. A stunned silence fell. 50 strokes, administered to the Supreme Pontiff in public, would be a humiliation beyond measure. Even those who disliked Bibi Dong recoiled. Qian Daolu's face tightened. Xunan, to strike the Supreme Pontiff in public is to strike Spirit Hall itself. This is improper. Improper, Qian Xunan asked coldly. I merely want everyone to understand that the greatest authority in Spirit Hall is not a person, but our laws. Bibi Dong's voice rang out, indignant. I am the Supreme Pontiff. Everything in Spirit Hall follows my orders. The High Priest has already punished me. Your second punishment is an overreach, an abuse of authority. Qian Xunan's expression did not change. Then, quietly and only for her ears, he transmitted a single, devastating accusation. Bibi Dong, she heard in her mind alone, I know you were involved in my elder brother's death. The words hit her like a physical blow. Her face drained of color, and her body trembled.